Land Use and Zoning Committee. My name is Elizabeth Arian. I am co-chair with Jerry Caliendo of this committee. The meeting is being conducted virtually tonight. It's being recorded for your information and can be viewed on the board's YouTube channel. Each item of the agenda will be presented, followed by a question and answer period or comment from the committee members. Questions from the public or those watching this video can be put in the Q&A, and if we can, we will acknowledge them and answer them for you. Because of the open meetings law tonight, we are not going to be having a vote because we are not meeting in person, but we will be making a report to the community board at its public hearing about the what has happened this evening. After the presentations, the committee is going to discuss the items and as they presented, and as I said, the report will be it will be for one of the items for 311712, which was recently, just certified by City Planning Commission. So for the first item on the agenda, it's an informational presentation on a proposed zoning for what we know as the LaGuardia Shopping Center on Ditmars Boulevard between 43rd and 45th Street in Astoria. I don't know who is, I think Mr. Eggers is managing this group. If you could introduce your team and then proceed with the presentation, I'd appreciate that.
Most certainly, Chair Arian, Chair Caliendo, committee members, good to be with you. Dan Eggers, land use attorney at Greenberg Charg, representing Rosenwalk Tank Company, which is the water tank company that's been serving New York since the 1800s, and it's been in Astoria for decades and has owned the LaGuardia Shopping Center for many years. I'm joined by Henry Rosenwalk from Rosenwalk, as well as Michael Hardy. Also with me tonight is Manish Chadha, the project architect, and his team, Connor Lacefield from AKRF, the environmental consultant for the project, and my partner, Deirdre Carson. We're excited to share with you our plans to reconfigure and redevelop the LaGuardia Center Shopping Center at 4302 Ditmars. That's the address. And as you know, it's across from the community board's offices. With residential use above the shopping center through an MIH rezoning and other ULURP actions that we'll discuss with you. So if I could, I will now try to share my screen and pull up my presentation. It says host disabled participant screen share.
Florence?
Let's give it a moment. Let's try again.
Okay.
Sorry, tech is slow today. Brian Hunt, please allow promotion. There you go.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Here are photos of the shopping center. As mentioned, the shopping center will be reconfigured, and we will develop 8- and 9-story, approximately 416,000 square foot building with up to about 480 apartments above and around the reconfigured shopping center, of which approximately 25% or 120 apartments would be affordable under MIH option 1, and 66,000 square feet of ground floor retail use for the shopping center and new retail spaces. To tell you where we are in the process, we've submitted a draft land use application to city planning. We're probably about 6 months away from ULURP, so this will not formally reach you likely until the fall, but we do very much appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight to make an informational presentation so we can hear the committee's questions and have time to respond to them before we return as part of ULURP later this year. As you probably know, the shopping center makes up most of the block, approximately 2/3 of the block bounded by Ditmars, 43rd, 23rd Avenue, and 45th Street. It has 550 feet of frontage on 43rd and 45th Street, and 200 feet of frontage on Ditmars, and a lot area of about 110,000 square feet. It is currently in an M11 zoning district. It's a manufacturing district that covers only this block. The block is surrounded, as you can see on the zoning map, by residential zoning districts. And as you know, most of the surrounding area is residential. Many of these buildings are between 2 and 4 stories, but the site is across 45th Street from the 7-story Bastille Grand Manor, where your offices are, which contains about 200 apartments. And there's the 8-story development by Mega, which is under construction on the southern portion of that block. And as you know, Ditmars features many local retail uses. So we're proposing to rezone the shopping center and a portion of the block that has residential use currently, the zoning districts that allow residential use. The shopping center would be rezoned from M11 to an R6A with an R7A within 100 feet of Ditmars, and it would be within a C24 commercial overlay. The commercial overlay would allow for retention of the existing types of commercial uses, including a supermarket, while the proposed R6A district would allow the site to be altered to add residential uses at the same density as the block directly to the east, which is R6A. And as we'll discuss, the R7A allows for more of the building to be massed on Ditmars, the wide street. The R6A with MIH allows 3.6 FAR, and the R7A district allows 4.6 FAR. There's also an R6B district that would be mapped, which allows 2.2 FAR, which is proposed for the portion of the block within 200 feet of 23rd Avenue that has residential use currently, and that would legalize the residential uses there. And that portion of the block is shown here. The existing industrial uses on the block would not be affected by the rezoning. These zoning districts would create a transition area from the R5 district to the blocks west and south, and the R6A district that's to the blocks east, without, we believe, overwhelming the R4 district that's to the north. A zoning text amendment would map the project area for MIH, which would ensure that the proposed development and any future development in the rezoning area would have permanently affordable housing. And now I will show you preliminary axonometrics. The shopping center would be redeveloped with 8 to 9-story, approximately 416,000 square foot building, with up to about 480 apartments above and around the reconfigured shopping center, of which approximately 25% or 120 apartments would be affordable under MIH option 1, and 66,000 square feet of ground floor retail use for the shopping center and new retail spaces. As you know, MIH option 1 requires 25% of the residential floor area to be affordable at 60% AMI, and of this, 10% must be affordable at 40% AMI. Here's a perspective view. The building would comply with the height and setback requirements for the proposed R6A C24 and R7A C24 rezoning. Along Ditmars in the R7A, the street wall would set back 10 feet, except for dormers at the maximum base height of 75 feet and 7 stories, and rise to a total height of 95 feet and 9 stories. In the R6A district, in the mid-block, the building would set back 15 feet above the maximum base height of 65 feet, 6 stories, except for dormers, before rising to the total proposed height of 85 feet, 8 stories. It's contemplated that to respond to the context across 43rd Street, which is mainly 1 and 2 family attached homes, the street wall would be articulated at floors 2 to 4, and floors 5 to 6 would provide large notches in the street wall. Floors 7 and 8 would be split into 2 segments to further reduce the appearance of the building scale, while floor 9 would be a partial story that's limited to the R7A district along Ditmars. And here are other elevations. And these design features are also shown on the site plan. As you know, the existing shopping center is configured in an L shape around a surface parking lot that fronts on 45th Street and Ditmars Boulevard. Proposal would relocate the shopping center to the 45th Street frontage, partially bisect by a walkway, which we call Steinway Walk, to provide access to retail establishments on the interior of the space. Further, it's contemplated that an approximately 2,300 square foot cafe and gallery would be provided, along with a public terrace with landscaping and seating for additional activation of the streetscape along 45th Street. The residential component would be placed along 43rd and Ditmars frontages so that the building would be configured mostly in a U shape, massed on 43rd Avenue and Ditmars, around and above the reconfigured shopping center. As you can see on the ground floor plan, below grade parking would be accessed from a curb cut on 45th Street. We expect to have attended parking with stackers along with self-parking for the retail uses. Zoning would require up to 276 parking spaces be provided in total, which brings us to the other zoning actions that we're seeking. We plan to seek a zoning text amendment and corresponding special permit to reduce the number of required residential parking spaces for the project, provide 229 total spaces, less than, as I said, the 276 required. That would be for what's called in the zoning resolution a general large-scale development. We appreciate that the mayor's City of Yes housing proposal would eliminate the parking requirement for residences here, so this reduction would not be needed if the mayor's proposal is in fact enacted. Another zoning text amendment and special permit would be sought to allow the shopping center's loading dock to remain in its current location, which may not be permitted once the adjacent residential rezoning is enacted. Lastly, a special permit under the general large-scale development would allow about 22,000 square feet of floor area to be shifted from the project's R6A portion to its R7A portion on Ditmars to facilitate the design that we're showing you. And here, finally, are some perspective views of the project. 45th Street, along 43rd Street. This is on 45th Street and it shows the public terrace. There'll be some more images of that. Another view of the public terrace. Once more. And that is our presentation. Thank you for your time again tonight, and we welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Eggers. Jerry, do you want to open up the discussion?
Yes. What were the total number of residential units you're proposing?
About 480.
480. What is your average, what is the breakdown of units that you're proposing, 1, 2s, and 3s?
So the preliminary breakdown, we initially had an intended unit mix of 20% studios, 60% one bedrooms, and 20% two bedrooms. But we've been in discussion with Councilmember Caban, and she's requested more family-sized units, which the team has studied. And there are two scenarios that we're currently analyzing. One scenario would have 15% studios, 60% one bedrooms, and 25% two bedrooms. And the other would have 15% studios, 50% one bedrooms, 30% two bedrooms, and 5% three bedrooms.
Mhm. The scale of the project relative to the properties across the street on, was it 43rd?
Yep.
Because on 45th, you have the Pistilli building, which is a 6-story building. And then, but across the street on 43rd, you have 2-story buildings. And with a narrow street, and you're going up, even in mid-block, is it 8 stories?
Correct.
So have you done any shadow studies, how that 80-foot high wall would affect, because this building is east of those 2-story buildings, and what the effect would be? I mean, obviously, half the day, a good portion of the morning for sure, because the sun rises in the east, comes up, all those buildings would be in shadow. Right now, that's I believe it's 1 story. Am I correct?
So Jerry, and in a moment, I'll let Connor speak to whether any shadow studies have been done now. But I do want to highlight the architecture, and we have put some thought into this, and city planning has given us guidance as well as to how to respond to that concern about context on the other side of 43rd. And you're correct that the maximum height in the R6A is 8 stories. But if you, and I'm not sure how well you can see on my screen here, but as shown on the site plan, a lot of that front, a lot of the R6A portion would rise only to a height of 6 stories. We are making attempts to break up that mass, concentrating the higher portion towards Ditmars, the wide street, where it will be 9 stories in the R7A, an 8-story portion here. Then it's 6 stories for a lot of that area, and then rises to 8 stories again. In addition, we're also articulating floors 2 to 4 to sort of create a read of a townhouse effect, if you will, at the street level, and also providing notches in floors 5 and 6, which are shown here. Those are what those notches are, all in an attempt to break up the building scale. So we do understand that. We do appreciate the height of the buildings across 43rd Street, but we have given thought into how to try to address that and better and have the building's mass better relate to that context, Jerry. Connor, can you speak to any studies that have been done regarding shadows yet?
Yes, certainly. We have done some preliminary shadow studies as part of the project's environmental review. Those studies, focus on what we call sunlight sensitive receptors. So they really looked at whether this building would cast shadows on the PS 84 playground, which is a block further away past 42nd Street, and the Steinway Reformed Church a couple blocks away. So, that those studies found it wouldn't result in impacts on those sunlight sensitive receptors. It does show in some of the preliminary screens that, you're right, it would cast shadows along the buildings on 43rd Street, different lengths and different intensity of shadow depending on the time of year.
Well, thank you for that answer.
Okay, Richard, you have a question?
Yeah, my main one is actually following up on what Jerry said. The thing that struck me initially most was the fact that you had your additional height against the two-story buildings, while you had
Mhm.
where the 7 and 8-story structures are, you had your lower height. And that's just it's counterintuitive to what I see most often in developments like this. So I really think that everything should be reversed, frankly. I don't see the actual, unless you're viewing it from the context of you want your commercial facing the co-ops, which would be the only reason I think that you would want to do that. I think that it's detrimental to the neighborhood. I really think that you should be scaling down when you come close to these two-story buildings. So I think that's my impression anyways. I do hope you reconsider what you're doing, because I don't think it's really going to fit the neighborhood well. If I lived in one of those two-story buildings, I would not be happy about it. And my second question will be, what's your plans in terms of sustainability for the building? I'd like to know exactly what you're looking at. Will you be putting in for the parking areas, electric for charging cars, all these kind of things? Will you be running solar panels to create energy? Any thoughts on your sewage lines and things like that? Have you done anything on what's required in the area? You've got a lot of buildings going up there in an area that never had a lot of residential. And I want to also be sure that the infrastructure and the sewage lines are able to handle it. Those are my observations.
Thank you. Manish or Adam, can you speak to the sustainability measures?
I think hi, everybody. Thank you for your time today. I'm Manish Chadha. I'm the principal at Ismail of Architects. I would like to start by addressing the comment and question about the orientation of the building and why the bulk is facing 43rd Street and not 45th. So I think one of the important features of this redevelopment is that the original commercial building was designed to support a structure on top of it. So we will be, and the reason, and that portion of the structure, unfortunately, in this case, faces 43rd Street. So the foundations of the majority, not entirely, but the majority of the building that is being developed here already exist. And that's sort of the big reason why we are not, putting the bulk of the mass along 45th. So I think that's again, we agree with the comment that the scale of what's on 43rd Street existing and what's being proposed are a little bit at odds to each other, but we've done, given that sort of direction, we've done our best to break that mass down and make it more residential from a street level. And I also believe that, the current condition will definitely be improved by what's being proposed, because currently, if you are in one of these residences on 43rd Street, you are facing the back wall of a commercial, strip shopping center, which is, it's the service side of the building. And by proposing apartments that are at grade, and then above that with setbacks and recesses, I think will definitely improve the environment on that street and the overall appeal for that street by activating it more. There will be more activity. There'll be more residents in the neighborhood, and I think that would be an overall improvement. I again still agree that yes, I wish we could have put more of the mass, like distributed the mass a little differently. As far as I think your second comment was about I forget, sustainability. Oh no, yeah, I think so, right? So I think, and I'll let Adam, my colleague, speak to that as well. But we're definitely, very focused on sustainability features in all of our projects and developments, and the New York City Building Code, I think is doing a phenomenal job of pushing the envelope on new developments into a more sustainable direction with every update. And in addition to that, we will be doing a high efficiency energy envelope. So, very well insulated walls, double glazing and high efficiency windows. And there will be EV chargers for the parking spots as well. I'll let Adam speak about a little bit of the other sustainability features that we are contemplating.
Sure. Thanks, Manish. Yeah, Adam Fettig with Ismail Architects. Like Manish was saying, we're very excited for the options and opportunities for sustainability that this project represents. The building footprint, the location in the neighborhood gives us a couple of very, very nice chances, for instance, for stormwater management to be very, very mindful of that. This is a good building where we can capture stormwater. We can regulate that flow back into the sewer system to make sure that that's being managed properly. It's a great solar access with the way it's positioned. So that gives us a great opportunity for daylighting controls, daylighting within spaces, occupancy sensors, things like that. So trying to minimize the lighting energy that we're using. Manish mentioned electric chargers. Obviously, there's going to be bike storage. Part of sustainability is also focusing on the health of the tenants of the space. So having some amenities, passive and active amenities, we're looking into some options for exactly what that's going to be, but that's definitely on our radar there. And I think actually, Manish pointed out one of the biggest aspects of it is so the reusing the existing structure that's on the site is a really, really great opportunity for us to minimize the carbon footprint of the new construction. So that'll be really exciting to get into. Thanks.
Just a quick point on, we mentioned solar, but stormwater, management. So just for everybody, I want that involves green roofs, vegetated roofs, and again, the footprint of the site offers not a very small, just a small token amount. I mean, this will be extensive for the amount of roofs that we have, and also opportunities for solar panel for generating a good part of the load that the building will have. I think a third comment was about the infrastructure and the sewer lines, etc. I think maybe Connor, if you want to take that. If not, I can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I can say, before they can get a building permit, the applicant would have to go to DEP for a site connection proposal application. And in that process, DEP will look at the sewers in the vicinity of the site, make sure that they are sized appropriately to accommodate the anticipated flows from this project. So that would happen in the future as this project is going towards construction.
Well, okay, thank you. I just think that you may end up getting some pushback regarding the orientation of the building. So it's something to keep in mind. And if you can put your creative heads together to mitigate it even more, I think that's going to be to your advantage.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Next up, Andreas.
Yes, thank you. So my first question is, I believe you guys said that you expect DCP certification by roughly the end of this calendar year. Is that correct?
I would say we're about six months away.
Okay. And assuming right, you get approved, right, all your proposed changes are approved by the city council. What do you think your timeline is, like approximately from approval day till the end of construction? This is like ready to move in.
The developer would, of course, want to construct as quickly as possible, but we're expecting about a 3-year construction period.
Okay. And kind of on that same note, are you relying on a 421A program or similar or something similar for this to be constructed? And if so, and something like that doesn't materialize this year, will that cause any delays or even cancellation of this plan?
So as with most affordable housing developments that aren't relying on subsidies, we are dependent on a tax incentive being enacted, and we are hopeful and expecting that one would be during the course of this process. We're looking, as long as everyone else is, at what Albany will do this session. So this is with the assumption that there will be a 421A Affordable New York enacted. If that takes longer than expected, that may create some delays, but we would have to cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay. And then my last question was related to the parking. I think you mentioned that you were going to have potentially separate parking for residents and then perhaps as well as consumers who are visiting the business. Is that correct?
That's the plan, that there would be attended parking with stackers for the residents and self parking for the retail users. And this is a preliminary, this is an illustrative parking layout. Of course, they'd have to work with an operator on the stackers and how they'd be configured. But this is an example of what's intended regarding the parking at this time.
Oh, so they're like the large metal stackers, right? That you see, right? They're like multiple stories, or this like okay.
No, they're not. I mean, they're just 2-story, like 2-level. They'll accommodate 2 cars, one on top of the other. But it's
All right,
it's all indoors, and it won't be visible from the street.
okay, so it is
Right?
underground.
It's below grade. Yeah, it's in the cellar.
And that 200 something number, was that only for residential, or that included what you anticipated would be for people who are visiting to shop?
That would be the total number of spaces provided, 229. That's what we're
Okay, so
proposing.
including both for residents and for visitors. And how would you say that split would round up?
So currently, as you know, parking is required for the residences. We'd be seeking a reduction of that number. There is no mechanism to reduce the parking that's required for the commercial uses. So the number of spaces required for the commercial uses required by zoning is 1 per 1,000 square feet of floor area. So that would be 66 spaces that would have to be designated for the commercial uses, which would leave 163 spaces for the residential.
And how many spaces is it currently?
They're on the site now.
Yeah.
150.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I just want to add, I think on that 421A comment, I believe the project is vested under the old 421A program. So again, we may not meet that 2026 deadline, and if the project were to be modified, the program were to be extended or modified, we'll have to see how that affects. And Henry, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case.
Yes.
I did want
Yeah.
to
Thank you, Manish. Yes.
to correct that. So.
I have one clarification. You said currently there are 150 spaces for cars. Does that include the open area for the for the commercial?
You mean
Or-
on the shopping center site now?
Yes.
Yeah, that includes the surface parking and the parking in below grade.
Okay.
That's
If
all
I can-
total, yes.
If I can interject here,
what you're seeing here, the gray portion of the cellar that you're seeing here for parking is the existing. They're going to have to excavate the balance in order to enlarge the area for parking. So,
Right. The lighter gray portion is new excavation, and the darker gray and the middle shade gray is what's existing. Thank you,
Okay.
Deirdre.
Hold on. Oh, next up, Evie, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a lot, so I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch the presentation. It's a lot to absorb. I guess I wanted to go back to the shadow study. So you're saying you did conduct a shadow study on the 2-story homes? You have done that already?
We have done a shadow study for the environmental review, which focuses, does a shadow sweep of the proposed building on 4 representative days throughout the year. And it focuses on what we call sunlight sensitive receptors that are open spaces or historic resources.
I heard that. I thought you also
Okay.
mentioned that you had gotten some preliminary numbers as well for the residences that are facing, the taller height side of the project.
No, we didn't run any kind of duration on those.
Okay, so can you do that? Can you run that? Because I know you said that, this is going to improve the streetscape for the people that are living on that block, but if they're going to be, have no sunlight all day, then that, I don't know. I don't know if you talked to them. So it would be good actually if we had information on that, because I do think that that is an important point. The other thing that I wanted to mention regarding the percentages of the, the breakdown of the apartments and the size, there is, and I don't have the report, the article that was published, but recently, I think in our community board area, I think nearly 80% of the new construction has been studios and 1-bedrooms. And so I think what we're really pushing for is more 2 and 3 bedrooms. And so right now it's just 35% when you add up the 2 bedrooms and the 3 bedrooms for one scenario that you had, and only 25% if you look at the other scenario. So I think that is something, just given the disproportionate number of new studios and 1-bedrooms in this community, that there's definitely a need for things that are family-sized units as well. And I guess going back to the parking spaces, so you had said if City of Yes, is passed, then the residential parking, you would eliminate the residential parking. I just wanted clarity on that because I thought you said that you would, or you're not sure. I guess I'm just trying to get a sense for that.
So City of Yes would eliminate the requirement to have residential parking. I believe that at least some residential parking would be provided. I think we'd have to revisit, the division between the commercial and the residential under that scenario. But as of now, of course, we're seeking to comply with what's required under zoning as modified, as we discussed, slightly modified as we discussed through the action we're seeking, which would reduce the residential parking requirement by 57 spaces, 47 spaces.
I mean, I think I'm a little more concerned about the retail parking because it is such a drastic reduction in the number from what's there, and that lot is usually full. It's off people who go shopping, and there's not a lot of supermarkets in the area. Are you planning on keeping the same supermarket? Are you going to be looking at other, what's going to happen to the people that are currently leasing, space in that complex? And I guess the other thing is, if you do reduce the residential parking more than what's in there right now, does that mean that then maybe you would add some more affordable apartments? Because I think the argument is always that parking is very expensive. So if you're not going to be doing the parking, do you then actually give something back to the community in terms of affordable apartments? So those are kind of my questions.
Thank you. So to respond a little bit out of order, ACRF has done a parking study and found that based on the uses of the current shopping center, which are the types of uses that are expected to be there in the future, that there would be a parking shortfall of 19 spaces during the week and 62 spaces on Saturday, but that this shortfall would be able to be accommodated by on-street parking in the surrounding area, which an on-street parking study found that within a quarter mile of the site, there were approximately 200 parking spaces available during the weekday, midday, overnight, and Saturday midday and afternoon peak periods. So we do appreciate that there might be some period of time where there may be some patrons looking for spaces, but that it won't be all that many. To go to your question about the types of retail uses, I believe, I think I'll turn it over to Henry and Michael to speak about the tenants and the expected uses there.
Yeah, hi everyone. Henry Rosenwalk with Ownership. Good to see some familiar faces, and first and foremost, thank you for letting us be part of the community. Our family's been there since 1987, and we are just trying to put our best foot forward for Astoria. So in terms of the tenants, we've had preliminary discussions with the majority of the tenants, including Jerry from Matrix Gym, TJ from Berry Fresh, the supermarket that everyone loves. And they're all very excited about the possibility of a brand new space, a space built to suit for their needs, and the possibility of having a tremendous amount of customer base living right above them. Everyone would have a right of first refusal to the new space, and knowing TJ, he'll probably relocate his TJ's Berry Fresh, relocate his space, which is in the back of the L, and he'll probably want to come to the 45th Street frontage. So not only can he capitalize on the parking, but also have a lot of transient shoppers just by walking. So all the tenants are well aware of the possibilities and what's coming down the pike, and we always put them first above anything else. So we want to make sure that they're successful and it's a win-win for everybody.
And I do want to make a response to the question regarding providing affordable housing in view of the cost savings from parking. And as we've all heard, as we know, it does cost money to provide parking spaces, and that's a main impetus why the mayor's proposal is seeking to eliminate the residential parking requirement. But here, this ties back to the comment that Manish made earlier regarding the existing structure. And when in view of the existing structure, we're limited in terms of the extent of the excavation. And as you saw on that slide before, we're not able to excavate the entire footprint of the site below grade. So we're limited in the amount of parking that can be provided based on that area that cannot feasibly be excavated. So it's not so much that the cost savings is what's driving the desire to provide fewer spaces here. It's truly feasibility, and we studied long and hard and worked with a potential operator on how to accommodate as many spaces as possible in that in the area that we showed you before, in order to really minimize the amount of reduction. So that's what I think is what's driving the parking proposal here, in terms of being able to provide further or additional affordable units, where right now we're proposing to comply with MIH I'm sure we're going to get more feedback from the community board and from the council member about the affordable component, and we'll look into alternatives as those discussions progress. But I wanted to make that clear what's really at issue here regarding the parking.
Thank you. Could you clarify one thing for me with regard to the retail space? Can you compare the existing square footage with what we'll have in the future?
Right. So we're proposing 66,000 square feet, and currently it's about that amount. I'm getting it right here. It's about 61,000 square feet of floor area. So in fact, there'll be a slight increase in the zoning floor area of the retail spaces.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Liz, you just stole my question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I wanted to keep it on point, though.
Well, I do want to clarifying some clarity on the retail space. So all the tenants have been spoken to. They know that they, will have to move out, right, for the duration of the construction. How long do you plan on, in terms of the construction, how long would that take? So that they'll be, out for a number of years, probably.
Henry and Michael, can you speak to that, please?
Good evening, everyone. Michael Hardy with the Rosenwalk Group. We anticipate about a 36-month construction cycle, and we have looked with the architect and other folks at a way to potentially keep some businesses open while we begin construction activities and have as least impact in the time that they need to be off the site. About a year ago, we talked to a site safety person about what our options would be and what the structure or what the structural remediation to the foundation and new construction would be to phase those tenants out. So I don't have an answer for you on how that quite works. It's a large site, but our guess is it's right about a 36-month cycle, start to finish, till we get a TCO.
Wow. I mean, I just feel bad for people who, there aren't that many supermarkets in that area. So I think the residents in the area will miss the supermarket greatly. I have a question about the zoning map. If you do you mind going back to the zoning map for a second? There's a section on the 45th Street side that's still M1, that smaller section. What's currently there now?
What's going to remain M11? So
Yeah.
that is an industrial use, which there was talk with city planning about potentially including that in the residential rezoning, and it was determined to leave that out because it is a use that's consistent with the M11. Whereas, as mentioned, the residences along 43rd, that's not conforming with the M11.
But what are the businesses in that M1 section right now? I'm not remembering what's on that corner.
I think it's a butcher and an electrician.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I think there's an auto use there too.
Thank you.
Brian Hunt?
Hey, Liz. So do you have an estimated dollar amount for the total cost of the project?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Now just to walk back real quick to what Andreas had asked about regardless of the 421A, is this entirely funded privately?
Meaning without government subsidies?
Yeah, the rest of it.
Correct.
No, in other words, there would be nothing else I know we don't know about whatever would replace that, or we're waiting on that. Is there anything else that would trigger prevailing wage laws on this project?
No.
Okay, and you don't have a developer decided upon yet?
We are the developer.
You guys are developing it. Okay. And so there's no, I'm sorry, there's no, Okay, there's no general contractors that are, obviously we're too early for that, right? Is there any prospective, general contractors that are looking at or decided upon yet?
We have been talking to two different construction management firms who are helping us with another development in Long Island City and another building that we're putting up in New Jersey.
Okay, very good. The only concerns I would have are their labor standards, safety records and things of that nature moving forward.
Understood.
Thank you.
You're muted.
I'm finished. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's all I was concerned with.
Liz, are you muted?
Ah, my gosh, yes, I was too. We both were at the same time. You have your hand up, Jerry. Do you still want to make a
Yeah,
comment?
I do want to ask a question. Obviously, this is a massive project, and I think you heard some concerns about the impact relative to the two-story buildings. And I even believe the height in the R7A portion that you're proposing is also massive relative to the context of the surrounding area. Have you looked at, and I'm sure you have, what are the numbers? If on Ditmars, the first 100 feet was R6A, and the interior portion of the lot, through lot, was R6B, what would be the difference in the numbers of apartments?
I'd have to run the numbers. It wouldn't take me long, but I don't want to take your time here, Jerry. So I can do that and get back to you.
Please do. And one other question. I'm very familiar with the building. I actually worked in the building. I did the gym and the cellar, and I worked on a couple of the stores. And in the very beginning of this development of the project of the building, I find it hard to believe with one of the statements that were made that this building existing, you would build a 9-story building on top of it and leave the existing foundations. I just find it hard to believe.
It is designed, and it will require some reinforcing, but it is primarily that structure.
So you're going to be filing this, you would file this as an alteration?
I don't know if we would file this as an alteration or a new building because of the amount of, if that would be permitted in terms of the amount of new floor area that's being added. It might still constitute a new building, as per, from a DOB standpoint, but we would still be utilizing a large portion of the existing foundation for the development.
Are you lowering the cellar?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, did you, sorry, just a sidebar. Did you know Bob Redline?
No.
Oh, well, he went way back, engineer with my father, and he did an extensive study on the footings back then. And he signed off on building on top. But to go even further, we're bringing in Thornton Tomasetti to look at those footings as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we would do the full due diligence to load the existing structure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
Daniel Aliberti has a question.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Go ahead.
I've been waiting patiently.
Go ahead.
The construction is the project is quite big. And that shopping center is long. It's a long strip of shops. Is it possible to maybe let some stay in business, like at one end while you work on the other end, so to speak, so that these stores could keep working in the community and people could have a place to shop? And the other thing is the health club in the basement. Will that remain there? Will it remain during the work, during the construction, or will that be closed as well? Will the whole talk about that, please?
It's a great question. Michael Hardy with the Rosenwalk Group. We were owners of the property. We have been studying different ways to phase the construction in the way that the building is being proposed to be built. And it creates its own public safety issues and other construction challenges as we're rolling out construction. But we as owners have really cultivated a really nice community in this plaza. We have we have tenants that we are in great partnerships with. I certainly have listened to everything that everyone said. I see the folks at Dunkin' Donuts every day, for eons. We have coffee together. We know the community. And so to close any one of these businesses, I understand the impact. To keep them open during construction is a complicated task, especially with their position in the plaza, right? They're sort of set back into the construction work zone. So while we have been looking at it, I couldn't give you a full answer. I certainly don't think that I have a good answer on the gym. It's below the street level and in a critical area where we would sort of be starting construction. As Henry mentioned earlier, we have a great relationship with both the gym and the supermarket, who have both expressed interest in staying in this location once we're done with the new development.
The gym and the supermarket are my primary places that I use, and so where will they be relocated during the construction? And would the owners of the property assist them in relocating temporarily, or helping them out with some funding at least while they're being forced to move?
We have not spoken to anyone about relocation yet, so I'll let Henry sort of speak to some of those points.
Thanks, Mike. Great question. Regarding the phasing, we have to consider, are we going to get this project done quickly, or the phasing could delay and sort of cause a longer timeline in terms of the overall project. And then safety also is number one concern for us. Having active tenants on a live construction site is not the safest thing in the world, but we're going to have experts look at it, review it, and we want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. In terms of relocation, we haven't gotten to that discussion yet. It's too far down the road to think about relocation for all the different tenants. We're going to be going through a long ULIP process, which takes a while, and we'll see where the market is and where everyone stands in a year or so when we're fully approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other committee member? Brian, again, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, one more question. You had mentioned your relationships in the neighborhood and the local community. Do you have relationships with any building trades unions in the neighborhoods? Have you used them on any projects in the past, the other ones you've mentioned, for example?
So we have, go ahead, Henry.
Well, as a company, we're part of several unions. As Rosenwalk Tank, we're part of the plumbing union, we're part of the carpenters union, we're part of 522. So we're very well aware of labor practices, and you ask any of our employees, they're number one in our book. But Mike can talk to I guess any other projects that we've been undergoing in Jersey.
So we have an active construction site in Somerset, New Jersey, which is an open shop project. We have some union labor, some non-union labor. It's a work harmony in New Jersey. And our project in Long Island City, while it's not officially started yet, meaning we don't have a shovel in the ground. Our tenant recently exited. It's also an open shop project, and the construction manager who we brought on board has, I believe, some union labor and some non-union labor working in their budget for the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I have some things to say about the project. I am, and I waited until everybody spoke about it. I agree with Jerry that it is out of context, and I think you should do a lot of work to get the proposal smaller and less impacting on the surrounding development. We cannot continue to use the Pistilli building as a frame of reference for new development in the community. It happened once before, and I'm upset that it's happening to this extent at this point. I would like to have more information about what you're with respect to, let me just say that I missed having a draft project description submitted with this informational meeting, because there are so many questions that I have that relate specifically to the information that would be there, and also a draft EAS. So if those two things can be sent to us, it would be appreciated as soon as you can. I'm concerned about the open space that you have. Could you describe what you're doing there? It is this vast open area that you say is open to the public, yet I see no amenities, no seating areas. Yes, there. And I don't know where the ADA accessibility is to that plaza. It looks as if it's just a massive entrance into a strip shopping mall. So if you could please describe what's going on there and what your intention is. And also one other thing with respect to the renderings that you provided, I understand that it's not, they're not matured at this point. However, I would appreciate the renderings in the future have an emphasis on the streetscape and are not hidden by these paper trees that you have along the street. I want to see the relationship to the pedestrian. So let me see, that was, yes, the large scale plan, the open space issue, and I wrote something that I can't read here. So we'll follow up when you finish, okay?
Sure, and thank you, Elizabeth. We, as I said, we're coming to you early in the process, so a lot of this is in its formative stages. We don't have a complete draft EAS at this time, but portions of it that have been completed, we could get over to you. We do have a draft land use project description that we'll provide. I think that these images don't necessarily do justice to what's contemplated for the public space, and I'll let Manish speak briefly as to thought that's been given to the amenities and what this space is actually going to look like in real life.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I'll start with the ADA access is behind this. There's a ramp that brings us up to the plaza level. And again, right, we are working with some of these existing grades and levels that are there. So not being able to go down to bring everything down to the sidewalk level is another limitation. But we do have a ramp that brings us up to this level. I think you can see that here. It will be a fully accessible ramp, and then we intend to landscape the plaza, make it soft. It's not going to be a harsh concrete, just an open, stark open space. It's going to be green, landscape, benches, maybe a water element, though those are hard to maintain. So, sometimes they don't work so well. Even the intention behind those is good. So it will be a very welcoming open space for the community. And we will make sure that it is an addition to the development, not a,
Will you be,
doesn't take
will-
away from it.
will this become a privately owned public space officially?
Yes. It
No.
will be,
Well, to be
but
clear, I'm
yeah.
sorry, Manish, I'll interject here.
Yeah.
From a zoning standpoint, it's not a POPs and that is not generating a floor area bonus. So it's not truly a POPs, but the concept here is that while it's on private property, members of the public can use it, and someone who's not a customer of one of these stores can still come and sit in this area. But it's not a technical POPs under if you're familiar with it.
That's
But
right.
I do want to say that
And-
you're doing a special permit here, and with the special permit, as I'm sure everybody on the board knows, the City Planning Commission will approve that will require that the development be done substantially in accordance with the plans that are approved as part of the special permit. So you might have a concern that it wouldn't show up in the final iteration. It might change a little bit, but the concept is going to remain under the terms of the special permit.
But the special permit designating the large scale development, is that what you're?
Correct.
Okay.
But the plans that are part of that designation will be attached to a restrictive declaration that gets recorded, runs with the land, and requires us to substantially conform.
Okay. I asked that because I was very disappointed when the shopping center removed the benches that were there, having just walked 3/4 of a mile to the supermarket and then having no place to sit or rest. It was very disappointing that they weren't replaced. I think I had mentioned this when you came before us for the 37th Avenue rezoning or down in Long Island City. Okay.
Now, I think there's been some trouble, and we've heard this from some people in the community that some of the kids like to hang out here, and it hasn't actually been all the best sort of environment for the community. And I suspect, though I haven't been told this, that the benches were probably removed as part of an effort to try to discourage people from hanging out. This will be a totally different feeling here when you have a 24-hour community living around this public space.
Okay, and am I reading this graphic here that shows around this space will be commercial development, retail development? Is that what I'm reading?
That's correct. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
So-
where is the open space in relation?
It's
Oh,
this
it's
white-
right by the, okay, it's right by the gallery, cafe gallery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And then Steinway Walk is also open space, but it's more like a place to stroll when you shop.
Yes, you could see that. Okay. Well, at this point, let me see if there's something else we wanted to, I would very much like to see this proposal before after you file, so that it can be discussed before it, for, pre-certification. I don't know, Jerry, do you think that this is something that we should really ask? I don't see Jerry on the thing.
Well, I think they should just respond to some of the questions first, and then we could discuss those responses in committee.
Okay. Let me see if there's anything. Did I miss anything else? No.
I just have a question, Liz.
Yeah,
about
go
the-
ahead, Abby.
Sorry, because I did have the public space kind of jotted down. So thanks for kind of raising that. Is that going to be publicly accessible all the time?
Have we given any thought to that yet?
I don't think so.
You don't think that you've given any thought, or that it's not going to be open all the time?
We haven't decided yet.
Okay. And, you know, just I want to stick up for the teenagers who maybe got the benches taken away. You know, I know sometimes we target youth, but you know, I hope this can be a welcoming space for anybody when it's you know, if it's developed.
It will be.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for this. It's a big project. It's a big change for the community, and there is going to be a reaction from the community to something of this size. You realize that. So we hope to hear from you when these issues and concerns are addressed, and you make some headway on your you know, getting your project together to finalize your project. So thank you again for the presentation, all of you. And we do hope to see you soon, within a few months.
Yes, and we thank you again for your time. We did want to come before you early so that we can hear specifically these types of questions, comments, and concerns, so we can respond to them and get back to you. So you will hear from us before too long.
Yeah, it's important that the work be done with respect to understanding whether or not you can reduce the maximum that you're putting on this site. It's in bulk and in units, you know. Thank you again.
You got it.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, we have second item on the agenda was an item that was just certified, and in fact, it's not our official time for us to be reviewing this, but we wanted to get it to the March public hearing. This is 3117 12th Street rezoning, and it is Mr. Cheney. And are you here with anyone else, Mr. Cheney?
Yes, I have Demetrius Drogidis, who's a representative of the owner, and Gino Longo, the architect, is here with me.
Okay. So go ahead and.
Okay, let me share the screen if I may. Okay, can you see?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on the slideshow. Okay. So thank you. My name is Frank Cheney. I'm a zoning attorney with the law firm Rosenberg and Estes, here representing the owners of 3117 12th Street, with an application, actually two applications, for two actions. The first one is a zoning map amendment to rezone a portion of the block on which the development site is located from R5B to R6B. As you can see from the comparison zoning maps, the area to be rezoned is highlighted in yellow. It's currently zoned R5B, as you can see on the left, and will be rezoned to R6B pursuant to the proposal. As you can see, what that will essentially do is draw down the existing R6B zone directly to the north across the rezoning area. And as you can see here from the tax map, the rezoning will include, in addition to the development site outlined in red here, it will
Excuse me,
include.
Frank,
Oh,
the slides are not changing.
They're not changing. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Let me just end the slideshow and do it manually then. let me just go back quickly since you didn't see this. So here's the before and after zoning maps. Left, the existing zoning, and on the right, the proposed zoning. And here is the tax map with the project site outlined in red. And it will also include 8 other lots and two small portions of 2 other lots, which because of the split lot rules would not be affected by the rezoning. The second action is a zoning text amendment to designate the rezoning area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area subject to MIH option 1. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Here is the existing inclusionary housing map from Appendix F on the left, and the proposed map on the right, which shows our designated area outlined in red. So the rezoning and the MIH designation will facilitate the development on a development site of a new 5-story quality housing building with 25% of its residential floor area being permanently affordable. The building will contain approximately 35 dwelling units, perhaps fewer, depending on the final mix of unit types, sizes, and distribution in accordance with HPD guidelines. Approximately 9 units will be affordable on average, the households earning 60% of the area median income, which is approximately $56,000 for an individual and $80,000 for a family of 4. Looking at the area map, as you can see, the area surrounding the development site is predominantly residential with a scattering of institutional uses. Those are the blue properties, and light industrial uses, which are purple on this map. As you can see, the zoning is a mix of R5B, R6B, and R7A. The development site is located in a small R5B district, and there's another R5B district to the east and another one to the north. In all these R5B districts, the predominant building type is 2- and 3-story detached, semi-detached, and attached houses containing 1, 2, and 3 dwelling units. Interspersed between them is an R6B district, which is predominantly characterized by a mix of 2- and 3-story detached and semi-detached houses and some 3- and 4-story multiple dwellings. Then there's this L-shaped R7A district to the west and to the south, which is primarily characterized to the west by 6-story multiple dwellings and 1 high-rise apartment building. And along 31st Drive to the south, single-story light industrial buildings are interspersed with 6- and 9-story apartment buildings. I'll just quickly run through the photographs from the application. These are shots looking at and near the project site. Currently, the project site is developed with 5 buildings, all 1 and 1.5 stories. 4 of them are commercial buildings, 1 is residential, a total of about 5,800 square feet of floor area is developed on the site at an FAR of less than half FAR 0.48. Again, just looking at this is on 12th Street, down towards the corner. There are 2 community facilities, a mosque and an Islamic school. And looking across the street at the buildings, which are primarily 2- and 3 stories. In the corner, tall 3-story building. Just to give you a sense of what the neighborhood looks like, which you may already know then. Let me just talk very briefly about the kind of the history of the zoning in the area. This is the 1961 zoning map. At the time the present zoning resolution was adopted, almost all of Astoria, as you can see here, is zoned for
zoned R6 and R5. It stayed this way until 1989, when city planning's West Astoria rezoning, the area around the development site was rezoned from R6 to R5, which cut the allowable floor area ratio almost in half, from 2.43 to 1.25. Then again, 12 years later, 11 years later, in 2010, city planning undertook a very large area-wide rezoning. And here, the R5 district in which the development site is located was changed to R5B, this time slightly increasing the FAR from 1.25 to 1.35. In addition to these area-wide rezonings by the Department of City Planning, there have been several smaller private rezonings in the area. Here in 2006, 3 waterfront blocks on Vernon Boulevard were upzoned from R5 to R71 to facilitate the development of 2 19-story apartment buildings. This was before MIH, so there's no MIH or affordable housing component to these projects. In 2018, Variety Boys and Girls Club upzoned from R7A and R6B to R7X, and this was designated MIH, and for the development of a new 14-story, 280,000 square foot building with community facility, commercial units, and 112 apartments. Then in 2019, 3 blocks to the south, block 315 was upzoned from R5 to R6B and R7X and designated MIH for the development of a large-scale general development consisting of 3 mixed-use buildings of 5, 9, and 14 stories. In 2022, just 2 blocks to the south, block 318 was upzoned from R5 to R6A and designated an M15 and designated both as a mixed-use special district and as an MIH area to allow development of 2 mixed-use 8-story buildings. And then just this morning, city planning approved the 30-11 12th Street rezoning, upzoning portions of the 2 blocks at 12th Street and 30th Avenue from R41, R5B, and R6B to R6A/C23, and designated as an MIH area for the development of an 8-story mixed-use building with 85 apartments. Just to go back to our rezoning map to remind you that our rezoning is fairly small and modest, from an R5B to an R6B. This would allow the development, as I said, of a 5-story residential building with approximately 34 apartments, approximately 9 of which would be affordable under MIH option 1. This is the zoning comparison table from the application, and from this you can see that the rezoning will increase the residential floor area modestly from 1.35 to 2.2, which is lower than the 2.43, which is allowed by the R6 zoning that existed on the site from 1961 until 1989. And it will increase the maximum building height from 33 feet without setback to 55 feet after a 15-foot setback above a 45-foot base. And the proposed building will have a base height of 43 feet, a 15-foot setback, and then extending 1 more story to a maximum height of 53 feet. Just quickly to kind of go through the MIH option 1, as you can see here, the requirement is for 25% of the floor area to be affordable, a maximum of 3 income bands, averaging 60% of AMI, with no AMI band being greater than 130% of AMI, and with a minimum requirement of 10% at 40% AMI. And this is from the HPD website, just to give you a sense of what HPD considers these AMIs. 40%, which is the required 10% of the floor area, is considered very low income. The average 60% is considered low income, and the maximum is 130, which is middle income. And these are the income ranges for those areas: 40% being 53, 60% 80 for a family of 4, and all the way up to 130 to 173,000. This is the project's site plan. It's a little bit of an unusual shape. It has that dog leg off to the side, which we developed as open space. On this site plan, the building is shaded blue, with the darker blue being the 4-story base and the lighter blue being the 5th story after the 15-foot setback from the street. The green is obviously open space, and the gray is the parking area that will provide the required accessory parking, and that will be accessed through an areaway through the building. You can see it marked on the left-hand side of the building, areaway at the 1st floor. So again, a 4-story base at 43 feet, a 5th floor setback 15 feet from the front street line to a total building height of 53 feet. And you can see the throughway for the driveway is the arched doorway on the left-hand side of the project. So with that, I'll stop, and we'd be happy to take questions, comments.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Cheney, for the presentation. I see there is a hand up from Richard.
Okay, just a couple questions. First of all, the school and the mosque, have there been any, have they been approached? Are they going to have to, are they on the actual site, or are they just on the site that's being rezoned? What's going to happen to them? What's the issue there?
Well, they will be in the rezoning area.
Right.
They were approached a good number of years ago by the owners of the property to see if they would participate in the rezoning, and that they were not interested. So they're going to get a free ride here. They will benefit from the upzoning.
So they're not going to be replaced by your building.
No.
All right. Also, what do you go in this neighborhood here? I'm not sure, what is the flood zone area? How's it designated? And if in fact it is, how are you going to mitigate against flooding?
I think I'd like to let Gino Longo, the architect, address that question. Gino, can you speak to that?
We are aware of the flood zoning, the flood zone area, but it is minimal. We are not proposing any major utilities at the cellar level other than the bicycle parking. The building is an electrified building, so the electric meters will be installed at least 7 feet above the current grade elevation. The building will be designed that we can install floodgates at the main entrance, and this will at least sustain the building for any flooding that would potentially reach a 3-foot elevation, which is the height of the 1st floor window sills, which is really pretty much unforeseen. I believe that the current flood elevation is about potentially 1 foot.
Okay. What about the neighborhood? You say there's commercial and manufacturing and stuff in the area. How many jobs will be lost by this?
None.
Any idea?
None,
None?
none. The only development proposed is the development on the site owned by the applicant, which, as I said, is currently developed with seriously underdeveloped at an FAR of only 0.48 with 5 basically single-story buildings, commercial buildings, which are all the commercial uses are non-conforming because it's a residential zoning district.
Mhm. Okay, but those buildings, they housing commercial, they're housing, so are there jobs involved there? People employed there?
It's minimal. I don't have them at the tip of my fingers, but I can get you those numbers.
Richard, are you speaking about the current tenant on the property?
Obviously, some, you always have to factor in the fact, will jobs be lost by an action?
Yeah, the property right now is occupied by a residential building, and I believe the non-residential building is primarily like a parking garage. Demetrius could probably speak more about what the current tenants are on the property and anything related to the jobs. But as Frank mentioned, it is minimal.
Yeah, you're talking probably like, hi everybody, and you're talking four people. There's a studio and then a parking garage. So the studio has 3 employees.
Well, okay, that's fine. The structure itself, how do you, other sustainability factors, are you going to be following obviously green roofs? Are you considering having solar panels or any kind of energy generation, rainwater catches, things like that? How do you plan on that? Those type of
As I mentioned, the building is an electrified building. It's 100% electric. The intention is to have each tenant individually metered. Having tenants individually metered makes them conscious of their utility bills and makes each person individually more energy conscious and to use less energy. We are proposing solar panels. We are proposing electric vehicle chargers. I mean, most of the energy code requirements are now mandated by New York City, and the New York City and New York State Energy Code is doing a very good job of mandating what is required. As a designer, I like to propose a minimal spray foam insulation in the building, only to create an airtight barrier, maybe only a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and then make up with the rest of the insulation value with the greener insulation materials, in replacing fiberglass and things like that. We are maintaining as much green area as possible on the property while maintaining the required parking. We're also taking into consideration having the wider areaway, having 10 feet, possibly encouraging mail deliveries like Amazon packages, FedEx, things like that. That usually, with the building with this many tenants, having a lot of deliveries, we don't want to create congestion, so we want to try to encourage those deliveries coming into the areaway. We do have the very large bicycle parking area in the cellar. Being that the building is in a flood zone area, we do have the main use for the cellar will be to provide bicycle storage. We are also planning on having electric scooter storage, which will be in a very highly fireproof area and easily accessible. So we could encourage tenants to, if they do have charging scooters, to use that area versus having the scooters in hallways or within their apartments posing a fire hazard, which we're all aware of the hazard that we're having in New York City. And
sorry, go ahead.
The building, the construction also is being proposed as masonry load-bearing construction. So the building will have some mass to it. The mass helps with the thermal gain of the building, and also helps keep the energy more the building more energy efficient by having a little bit of a breathable exterior shell.
I wanted to say, I wanted to thank you and commend you for actually making facilities for deliveries for Amazon and things like that. That's something people overlook. And everybody here knows it's something that I always bring up. So thank you for figuring that in your plans. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, I wanted to speak more in terms of the context of the street and what's being proposed. I think it is in context. Looking at Google Maps, you could see that across the street are three-story buildings with steps that go up to the first floor with basements on the lower level. So these are three-story buildings. What's being proposed on this development, which is being set back 10 feet from the property line, aligning with the adjacent building to the north. And then after the third floor being set back. So they're adding one floor and then setting back in comparison to what's across the street. And the setback is significant because it's 15 feet. So I think in my opinion, it's within context, and I think it's a good development. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other committee member have a comment? Okay. We'll take this up in our business section.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Appreciate
Cheney.
the opportunity.
Yes, and you know that
Thank you for having us.
what we will be doing is a report to the community board about the discussion tonight, and the meeting is March 19th, the public hearing. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
members.
evening.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. Thank you.
Let's see, let me get my, okay, next item on the agenda. The City of Yes Housing Opportunities. Any announcements by our city planning representatives?
Hey Liz, how's it going? Yeah, we're still on the same timeline as I mentioned in our last meeting, so we'll be expecting to have some draft zoning text either by the end of this month or early next. And then we're expecting also referral by mid to late April, and then we'll have some time for presentations to the boards in May or June.
Okay, thank you. I just want to mention, I believe the commission voted on the economic opportunity today and passed it, and there were some modifications. And I didn't read the City Planning Commission's report, so I don't know what all of the modifications are, but what was in the press release today had to do with, let's see, goal number 2 was the use categories. And they said that what they did was address worries that allowed commercial uses on upper floors of mixed-use buildings that could create conflict with existing apartments. And what they would do is modify the language to ensure that spaces occupied by existing homes would not be converted to upper floor commercial uses. So the issue that we had with respect to that was that we wanted also to limit the size of upper floor commercial uses to 10,000 square feet, I think. And actually within C1 and C2, we wanted to limit it to just ground floor, not second story. So what they just did was say they can't convert residential to commercial. Then in goal number 5 was the upper story commercial uses. They said that it must be limited to an individual's dwelling unit and can't occupy common areas, residential common areas such as hallways or lobbies. And the issue we had, well, we just didn't want upper second story commercial uses. There's also 1,000 square foot cap for home businesses. And there, let's see, other modifications include clarifications about the kinds of businesses that qualify to newly located commercial zones and the required environmental protection standards for life science facilities. So, like I said, I think, like Jerry always says, the devil is in the details. So we have to read the report to see exactly what they talk, what concessions. Actually, what now happens is that it goes to the city council where the real wheelings and dealings will go on, and we'll see if what we said and other community boards said will bring some of the increase the modifications that they make. Evie, you have an issue?
No, not an issue, just
Send-
maybe a suggestion, because it is going to the city council, just to remind them what our comments were and maybe to resend the letter, that kind of outlined.
To our representative?
Yeah, to both, Councilmember Juan and Councilmember Caban.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep. Resend it.
Why do all that work and not let them know
I
about
want
it?
that out there. I want that out there. Okay. All right. We'll send that out. Okay. Thank you, Ryan, Colin. Sorry. You have two first names.
Yeah, no problem. I also just wanted to remind everybody that we have some public info sessions on the proposals for housing opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah. So while we won't be in referral until either around May, we'll be doing some public info sessions, and some of them have already occurred, but they're live streamed, so they're saved to our YouTube page. But I'll link our general housing opportunity page, and there'll be an upcoming one, I believe March 27th, to focus on the different proposals that we have within housing opportunity.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Remember, we need this all before certification. We need the text amendments before certification.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. Okay, so on item number 1, going for public hearing, I'd like your comments to be included in the report to the board. General impressions.
Out of context.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about the Ditmars one.
Oh.
That was my mistake. The one going before the board is the 12th Street rezoning. That's the one.
I made
The report for.
I made my comment.
Yep.
And I have no issues.
Okay. So it's generally consensus that it's, I myself don't feel that it's out of context or, it's a reasonable project for the size of the lot in the area. And, okay. So that report will be relatively easy to write. Let's see what else. Are there any approval of the minutes? Or I won't say approval. Any objections? Any changes?
No objection.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now I'm going to end this meeting on somewhat good note and also maybe a funny note. I found out that we have a new landmark designation in our district, and that is the Barkin, Levin and Company Office Pavilion at 1212 33rd Avenue, which is right next to the field for Long Island City High School. And it was approved by the Landmarks Commission at the end, mid-December. We only
What was
found
that address,
out.
Liz?
Sorry?
What was the address again?
1212 33rd Avenue. It doesn't come up, it doesn't show up very well on the maps, but
That's not like postmodern, like a modern.
Oh, I know the building.
Story.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not coming up on the camera, but yes, it's a one-story building that was designed by Ulrich Franzen in the early in 1958, and it is it was originally for a clothing manufacturing, a coat manufacturer. And it has since, you know, the uses have changed over the years since we don't have a garment industry anymore in the city. And it is now occupied by a company called Bimbo Bakeries. But don't laugh, Bimbo Bakeries is a Mexican company it's a worldwide company that that bakes Entenmann's, what's the Thomas's English muffins, Stroman's, etc. I mean, anything that you probably eat, that's what they do. They don't do it over here. This is just a manufacturing facility for our area, I think. But it is, it's a worldwide corporation. And that is also called, yes, the Grupo Bimbo Baking Company. Okay. Headquartered in Mexico City, a worldwide business. But the structure itself, it looks like a pavilion. It is a pavilion over the building. And I think, you know, it's surrounded by an open space. It's lovely. Let's see, it's I can't, you know, I can give you the designation number, which has a full report on it, a full description. It's L as in Larry, P as in Peter, 2675. If you just go on, you can get the full report on the Landmarks Preservation Committee. But it's nice to know we have another designated landmark in the community.
Who was the architect, did you say?
Ulrich Franzen.
Ehrlich Franzen, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was quite
Right.
yeah.
I think he was more of an urban planner. Wasn't that an
Yes.
urban planning operation that they had many years ago?
Yeah, so he was very active when I first started working in
I
planning.
remember, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so that is a nice note to end on. Shall we say good night?
Good night.
And thank you very much. And meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
See you in a
Nice.
couple of weeks.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Liz.
Yes, good night, Brian.